John Brown with Collected Development. Let's talk about T206 Horizontal Subset. Out of the 524 T206 from 1909 to 1911, only 6 were considered horizontals. This is the first one I'm going to show you. This is Joe Birmingham, and all 6 were not big stars even back then. Some were good, but Joe here had a 253 batting average, and the reason I like these so much is because they're different and there's not that many of them, so it's easy to get the subset. And as you can see, the backgrounds are really beautiful. They're usually an action shot. I think 5 of the 6 are of a player throwing the ball. And this is the first I'll show you. The next is George Mullen. Now, he was a very good pitcher at the time. He won 20 games 5 times, even had 29 wins in 1909, probably when this card came out. So he was probably considered at least an all-star caliber player. And he had a 1.86 ERA over the 3 World Series he was in. But pretty amazing performances, even in the dead ball era. And again, just a beautiful card, and most of mine are the typical back. Some do come in a harder back, and I can get into that with another series later. But it's good old George. And the third one is Danny Murphy. He had a slightly better batting average. He was a hitter with a 289 batting average, and he won 2 championship rings with the Athletics in 1910 and 1911. And again, you can see the background. That's one thing that really sets these T206 horizontals apart. The backgrounds are just really, really scenic and beautiful. And that is why I really like these, and why whenever you see me open a pack, I always take out the horizontals. It's one of those things where most cards for the last 100 years were portrait. And most of you know this by now, but if you don't, I just got one of my random art books by Le Corbusier, who was an architect and an artist, and you can see one of the cool things is, even in modern art, when they were doing a building or a scenic view or even a still life or an abstract, they were mostly in the horizontal landscape position, where it was wider than it was taller. But usually when they did a person or a figure, not always the case, because artists like to be different, you can see it's usually a vertical portrait, which is like good old Ozzy here. Classic card still, but not a horizontal. And that's one of the reasons I have always loved horizontals. And they really didn't start making horizontals again until around 1991 with Stadium Club. Upper Deck did have horizontals on the backs of their cards, but really the fronts didn't get a horizontal until around 1991. The next card is my favorite. It's the most beautiful in my opinion, with the sunset in the background. This is Harry Patty. He played for the Super Bass in Brooklyn before there were even Dodgers dodging streetcars in the street. And he only batted 216, and he didn't even come back the next year and never came back. So this is a very singular card in that he only came up enough to have a card and then disappeared from the baseball world. But again, the background and the batting, which most are throwing, shows just how beautiful these cards can be. Stick there. Okay. Second to last is Barney Pelty. And this one is actually expensive, even though he wasn't a hugely successful player. His record actually was 92 and 117. But apparently in 2016, a large collection of over 100 were auctioned by a singular collector. And I think there's certain collectors who collect just one card and that's all they do, or, at least they focus on one card. I think the same is true with 64 Topps Kurt Flood. You can complete the whole set, and you can get really hard to get the Kurt Flood because someone has like hundreds of them. But again, beautiful backdrop, beautiful cards. Again, the standard back. The rarer the back, the more expensive they are, and I just wanted to get the set first before I focused on anything extravagant like that. And then the last one I have is not graded. It's a little lower grade, and I just never got around to grading it, but this is Jacques Powell, and he was a pitcher. He was a decent pitcher, 245 wins, 254 losses. Played for Cleveland, obviously. Here you can see he's on St. Louis. Were they the Browns back then? I'm not sure, but he was a workhorse. He pitched a lot of innings. I think he pitched over 15 years, and again, just a really cool background. And I'm gonna bring one card up that's a little controversial. Maybe, I don't know, maybe after 100 years people don't care anymore. But this is Jack Dunn with Baltimore. Really, really, really interesting backstory. He was in Pennsylvania and playing near a local railway. A boxcar ran over his arm, and basically after that he had a very incapacitated arm, so to speak, but that didn't stop him from making the major leagues and playing and pitching even, and he also was an infielder. And if you talk to any T206 expert, they say this is a portrait vertical card, but I think, in my opinion, I think he's diving for a ball. I think this is the 7th horizontal, in my opinion. I think he's playing the infield, or I think he's a pitcher and catching a pop-up bunt. And the other interesting thing about Jack Dunn is that he was credited with giving Babe Ruth his nickname. Basically, to make payroll, Dunn had to move the team from Baltimore to Richmond, Virginia, and he had to sell off all his star players, including Babe Ruth, and 11 other players to the majors. And when they sold Ruth, he said it was his biggest regret, and his nickname comes from teammates referring to Ruth as Dunn's $10,000 Babe for the price he drew. But, I mean, the guy knew talent when he saw it. So, just wanted to show you my love of horizontals and, or as you can say, landscape. And let me know what you think, and thank you so much for watching.